Hello and welcome to Landscape Photography World, the podcast for everyone passionate about landscape photography. I'm Grant Swinburne. I'll be your host on this show, talking to landscape photographers about their motivations, likes and dislikes. Brett Wood is a full-time professional landscape photographer who's been in the business since 2014. Formerly in construction equipment sales, this Wagga Wagga native now splits his time between the New South Wales South Coast and New Zealand's South Island, considering it his spiritual home. With over 20 years of exploring and photographing New Zealand, he specialises in workshops there. Brett's photography style is straightforward, authentically replicating scenes as he sees them. His calm, friendly nature makes learning enjoyable for his clients, capturing beautiful photos. Beyond photography, Brett enjoys fishing, travelling, family, his dog, and exploring the culinary world. He shares his passion for nature, his nuanced approach to photo editing and printing, and how teaching others during his photography workshops gives him deep satisfaction, along with lots more. I hope you enjoy the show. G'day, Brett. Welcome to Landscape Photography World. How are you going?
Yeah, good, Grant. Thanks for having me on, mate. All good here today. It's a beautiful sunny day, typical spring wind, but all good, mate. Yep.
Fantastic. It's great to have you on. Been looking at your stuff for quite some years, actually, and been definitely had you on the list for a while. And it's great to actually get to see you, even if it is just virtually. But why don't you tell people that don't know you who you are and why you do what you do?
Okay, who am I? I'm a full-time professional landscape photographer. I've been doing it full-time now for about 2015, I think, was when I went full-time. No, 2014, sorry. So what's that, 9 years? Born and bred country boy, grew up Wagga Wagga in New South Wales. As a young fella, I spent a lot of time in the outdoors with my dad, camping, fishing, hunting, bushwalking, hiking, tramping, all that stuff. So I got my first camera when I was in Boy Scouts as a kid, which was a 35mm Hanamex, one of those little long skinny cameras that looked like a video cassette type thing. Mm-hmm. So I always dabbled in photography my whole life, really, but more just a happy snapper, tourist type snapper. And then in my former career, I spent many years, 25 years on the road in sales jobs. Okay. So I pretty much would always have a camera with me, and if I seen something that looked cool, I'd pull up and take some photos. And then in the early 2000s into about 2010, around there, I started doing a lot of trips to New Zealand.
Yep.
And that's when I really started to take my photography a bit more seriously, started shooting off a tripod, started using ND filters, all that sort of thing. And then it was probably about 2013, 2014, I just got completely addicted to photography. It just became like this absolute obsession. Yeah. And it just took over my whole life pretty much. Like I used to be, prior to that, my obsession was actually fishing.
Okay.
But the photography actually took over that, and I just got completely addicted to it, and it hasn't wavered since that day. I'm still the same. Every single day, 7 days a week, I'm completely immersed in something to do with photography. And then in the early 2000s, when I was about 40 years old, so I'm 52 now, so about 12 years ago, unfortunately, my mum and dad passed away. So that made me reevaluate life and have a bit of a think about where life was going. And I had a real good high-paying corporate job and all that sort of thing, but I just wasn't really enjoying it that much. And one day I decided to quit my job and take up photography as a full-time job and started doing workshops, and mainly in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. And I haven't really looked back. That's all I've been doing ever since. The first sort of 12 months was a little bit up and down, but it didn't actually take that long before things started to roll. Yeah. And that's pretty much what I've done ever since. Is my main business is landscape photography workshops. We do a stack of stuff in New Zealand, obviously. That's our, I guess you call it our specialty, is New Zealand. Yep. But we do other stuff as well, local stuff here on the south coast, New South Wales. And in more recent times, I've actually set up a professional level gallery here at my house.
Nice.
Which I actually put a fair bit of work into. I've got a professional lighting system, hanging system. Yep. So I've got a gallery downstairs of a lot of my images on. They're quite big. There's 1200mm wide acrylic face mounts. So I get a few people occasionally come through the gallery. it's like an appointment only thing because I'm often not home. We're often away doing workshops and stuff, but that's actually gone pretty well. I sell a few prints here and there. Actually got a order yesterday actually for a print. So yeah, do that. I always think, I don't sell that many prints, but then I get to the end of the year because I do actually keep an eye on the money that's coming in and where it's coming from and what areas and so forth. But I actually sell more prints than I think I do. So it goes along. I don't think any photographer that sells prints makes a fortune out of it, but it's a good sideline, and it's also something that is really makes you feel good when someone actually wants to spend $1,500 or a couple of grand on one of your prints. Yeah, so that's another thing. But yeah, that's pretty much me. I work with my partner, Lisa Milne. You can look her up. She's actually a really good photographer in her own right. And she works with me, and I think we're a pretty good team. So on all our workshops, we come as a package deal, the two of us, which I think is pretty unique because a lot of workshops might only have one guide or leader. So we've actually got the two of us. So yeah, that's pretty much what we do. This year so far, we've done 12 workshops and we've got 2 to go. We're about to go to New Zealand again on Wednesday to do 2 more, and that'll be the end of our year. This has been a big year, this one. Huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. It sounds like you're really busy.
Yeah, the last couple of years, particularly since the COVID stuff, has been like really busy. COVID was a bit of a couple of years of nothingness, but so we've been working pretty hard the last 2 years just trying to catch up. But yeah, it's all good, mate. I can't complain. I'm doing what I love and enjoying it. Yeah.
Okay. So where do you think that love for photography actually stems from? Is it just the desire to be outdoors, or is it something more about the artistic expression?
When I think back, when I was a kid, I was always a weird kid, the left-handed kid that was sitting in the classroom staring out the window, daydreaming, and never really connected with everyone else. So I've always had a little bit of that sort of arty side to me. But more than anything, it's about being outdoors. Okay. For me, I absolutely love nature. I love being out there and out there in nature taking photos. And honestly, if I get a good photo, it's a bonus. I'm honestly just happy to be there. And someone famous once said, I can't remember who it was, but you don't always have to get the photo on your camera. You take photos with your eyes. In other words, you see the scene. That's enough for me. But yeah, so I just love being out there. I just love nature in all ways. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of photographers get wrapped up in the technical side and trying to take the perfect photo and don't actually kick back and relax and enjoy the environment that they're actually in at the time.
Yeah, that's true, mate.
I'm the same. I can get very excited about a sunrise and a wave, and I forget the enjoyment of actually being there and seeing it.
Yeah, that's true, mate. Like, I only just put out a new YouTube video last night, actually. Went on a video we shot at Milford Sound this winter, and I actually made a bit of a statement in that video saying that, because I see people, they put a lot of pressure on themselves to get good photographs. Like they're very hard on themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think they don't enjoy it as much when they do that. And that's what I talked about in the video. I said, once you remove that expectation or that pressure that you put on yourself, once you remove that, I think you enjoy it a lot more, and you'll actually even get better photos as well.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that.
Yeah.
What do you do to help your mind relax, and where did that sort of epiphany come from?
Well, I'm always been a pretty relaxed sort of person. People that know me know that I'm pretty relaxed. I'm almost too relaxed for some people. I'm not a very well-planned sort of person. I just about wing everything in life. So most of the time I'm pretty relaxed. The only thing that stresses me out is technology and bad drivers, really.
Okay.
Everything else I'm pretty relaxed about. But definitely when you're out there and you get in that zone, I guess you'd call it, and sometimes you'll go out and you won't get in the zone. You just don't really enjoy it, or you.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say you don't. I wouldn't say you don't enjoy it.
You can't take a good one, you know.
Yeah, but there's days when you just click into this zone and everything it's almost like you're in your own little world. You're in another world. Everything just seems, and you don't actually even think about it until it's over. I'm not one, because we're doing a lot of stuff, and I'm not one that reflects on stuff that much. And then I get to the end of the year when we stop, and then I go back and I do start to reflect.
Yeah.
And you think, wow, wasn't that an amazing moment? We were at somewhere in Canada or somewhere in New Zealand or wherever it might have been, and you reflect on it and you think, wow, that was a phenomenal moment. Yeah, just being in the zone, getting in that zone, it's a pretty good feeling, and you definitely relax when you get into that sort of mindset. Yeah.
So in terms of, you mentioned you're not a planner.
Yep.
How does that work when you're planning your workshops? Because clearly you've got to do some planning, otherwise.
A lot of that is planned. A lot of stuff's planned. We plan a lot of stuff at least 6-12 months ahead.
Yep.
But in terms of an actual itinerary on a workshop, not very often we would run to a strict itinerary. I just don't think it works. If you rock up in New Zealand, for example, and you're going to shoot Mount Cook one day and then you're going to go down to Milford Sound another day and so on, we all know how fickle the weather can be. So it's good to have a bit of an idea of where you want to go, but as far as having a strict itinerary, I never do that. Every time we're running a workshop, we're just continually looking at weather apps on the phone and seeing where the wind's coming from and where the clouds are and so forth, and then just planning. Probably 12 hours ahead would be about the extent of it. We'll have, as I say, a general plan on what we're going to do, but we'll often twist things around. We might swap day 2 for day 3 or whatever it might be. Everything else, obviously, yes, is organised. We actually spend a hell of a lot of time here in the office at home planning out all those behind-the-scenes things that people take for granted. There's actually a hell of a lot of work goes into this stuff. So I am planned in that way. But in terms of, do I plan my photography? No, not really. Not really.
So you're in the field responding to what you're seeing and
pretty much,
going on the fly rather than pre-visualizing and saying, this is the shot I'm after.
Yep, pretty much, yeah.
Do you think that helps in, I guess, reducing the stress on yourself in terms of coming away with a good image?
Yeah, definitely. If you have a planned image you want to get, or sometimes you do have a planned image, but that will often be at places that you revisit a lot. And we do tend to do that, revisit the same places a lot. I actually like to do that, to go back to the same places a lot. So sometimes you might have a planned image or an idea of what you might want to get, but most of the time, no, it's just turn up and take a wander around and shoot what's there. One thing that I always try and teach people in the workshops is to slow down. Landscape photography is an incredible thing for slowing people down. You can really slow down everything you do. And I think getting to a location and just putting your camera bag down on the ground and don't even get your camera out of the bag, just walk around the whole area. Like some people, I say, don't have concrete boots. People get out of the vehicle and they got concrete shoes. They see a shot and they're just stuck there.
Put the tripod down, off they go,
And I'm guilty of doing that myself sometimes. But put the bag down, walk around for at least 20 minutes, half an hour, and find something that catches your eye. And I say to people, if something catches your eye, then take a photo of it. Go and get your camera and photograph it. It may be your best shot. It may not be, but if it caught your eye, you should go and have a look at it.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty much like that, really. Yeah.
Fair enough. So when you're in the field, what is it that you're looking for? What inspires that creativity, and how do you stay motivated to experiment and look at different things?
I'm probably not the most creative photographer out there, to be honest. Like I'm a pretty one-dimensional landscape photographer, really. I just try and keep it pretty authentic. But what motivates me, I just like being there. I find that's enough. Being out there in nature is enough to motivate me to do whatever. That gives me the motivation I need to get good photos. I've never been one of these people that hung up on the pink skies and the orange skies. I just don't care about that. I know a lot of people do, but I don't. I would say my best...
I enjoy them when they come along, but they're so bloody rare at the moment.
Yeah, but I don't care about that. Good light is one thing. Two things. One is light and two is composition, those two things. That's what I'm looking for, is some nice light and a nice composition. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. I'm not worried if the clouds are grey or the scene's got a lot of blue reflected light or whatever it might be. I don't care about that. The other thing is probably, because we do tend to, as I said earlier, we do tend to revisit the same locations a lot, and we do that with workshops. We also do it on a personal level as well when we do find time to get out and take our own photos. But one challenge or one motivation there is to try and come up with a different spin on a reasonably well-known location. Or you may, ourselves, for example, may have already have 3 or 4 really good images of a particular location.
Yep.
I'll use an example, Tasman Lake in New Zealand. We go there quite a lot. So every time I go there now, I'm really trying to just find something different, something that I haven't taken there, something that is just a real different spin on it. So that's a good motivation, I think. But that's one of those things that takes time too. You might walk around for an hour trying to find something different, and then all of a sudden something will just pop up. So that's a bit of a motivation these days, I think.
Have you ever overshot a location and just said, no, I've done it, I can't find anything else here? Or
I don't know. There's one in particular that we all know about, the Wanaka tree. I've got a gazillion photos of that.
I was going to say that's a tough one to get something unique there.
Oh, yeah, you still can. You've just got to think about it. And you need the right conditions and all that sort of thing. But yeah, I've been there a lot of times. But you know what? It's one of those places that it's iconic for a reason.
Yeah.
If you get some beautiful light there in the morning, for example, particularly with winter, it's still a really beautiful location. It's just that the people there that annoy you sometimes.
Fair enough.
But it doesn't seem to be as busy since COVID, I don't think.
Really? Okay.
I don't think so. The most we've seen there in the last couple of years might be 30 or 40 people, whereas I can remember before COVID going there when there'd be 100 people there. Incredible, yeah.
Yeah, everyone tripping over one another.
That's not fun. Yeah, that's not enjoying it.
That's not a fun photography experience in my book. I like being somewhere where the nearest person might be, if I'm lucky, 100 yards away from me. You know?
Yep, I agree, mate. Definitely. We recently did a trip. I went by myself. Lisa couldn't come. She had knee surgery. Went to Canada in September, and I tend not to look online at photos of places where I'm going. I've seen plenty of photos online of Canada, but I don't tend to really look online. It's more just turn up and whatever looks good, basically drive around. But I got some really good shots there of places that probably aren't iconic at all just because they look good. And there's places there like that you go, it's like anywhere. There's places there where there's bloody hundreds of tourists, but there's places there where you'll have an entire vista to yourself. Absolutely stunning vista all to yourself. So, yeah, I like that stuff too. I'm probably not one of these people that does extreme things like hikes down cliffs and I don't mind doing a bit of exercise or hiking or whatever, but I don't do anything too extreme. But I don't feel...
No ropes involved.
I have done in the past, but not so much recently. Yeah.
Fair enough. In terms of success, what does success look like for you in your photography?
I don't really think about that much. I guess I am successful because I've made a living out of it and pays the bills. So I guess that's successful. For me, if I can make a living out of it, which I do, so to me that's successful. But for me, there's probably two things. One is having clients that are satisfied and happy. That's very important to me, actually, that the people that come are happy and they're content, and they are, because they keep coming back. We've got 20, 30, 40 clients that are regulars, and they would be 5, 6. We've got one lady that's done 9 workshops with us.
Yeah.
A lot of people like that. So to me, that's success. That means that people are happy.
Repeat business.
Yeah, we were doing a bit of a list of some stuff the other day, and we actually decided to put together a list of people that have been on workshops with me since I started doing workshops.
Yeah.
And it's nearly 700 people. So
Wow.
I guess that's a measure of success, people. And if you have a look on Google, my reviews, they're 5-star. I haven't got any below that. So maybe one will come one day. I don't know. But so that's success. But the other thing for me that I think is what I would probably call measuring success is selling your work. That's just always, that's the pinnacle, I think. If someone wants to actually pay good money for your prints, and I don't sell my prints cheap, that spells success. I still never really regard myself as a great photographer. I think I'm a good photographer, but there's people out there that are probably a lot more talented or more naturally gifted photographers than probably what I am. But in saying that, yeah, I guess I've done all right out of it. So that's success for me, yeah.
Fair enough. In terms of building to that success, how do you think? Sorry, I'm going to start again.
Yep.
In terms of building to that success, putting hard yards into understanding both the field work and the processing and whatever, what did you do to start developing that? Was that something you did on your own, just watching YouTube videos or doing workshops yourself, or did you go through some formal education?
I'm a bit of a person that goes on quotes, and sometimes I talk about quotes. But one of my quotes that I do say to people a lot is "Passion determines success."
Yep.
And another one I always say is "Effort equals reward."
Mm-hmm.
So that passion determines success. If you're passionate about something, if you're genuinely passionate about something, and you've got belief in yourself, you can do anything you want. But yeah, back to that. I guess when I first started getting fanatical about photography, I would have spent probably 6 or 8 hours a day learning Photoshop, and I would have done that 7 days a week for about 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
Really, really immersed in it. And a lot of that was just learning from other people. Social media was a big help. I'd see something on social media and I'd think, how the hell did they do that? I'd just ask them, can you please tell me how you did that? But the other one is YouTube, of course. I'm a huge fan of YouTube. I spend a couple of hours every day on YouTube. So I've learned a lot off YouTube. I still watch YouTube every night. After dinner, I sit down and watch a couple of hours of YouTube, and I'm still following a lot of photography stuff, editing stuff, other photographers that are out in the field shooting vlogs, things like that. And I'm still always learning stuff. So it's like the world's biggest encyclopedia, right?
Absolutely. You can learn just about anything.
Yeah.
Are there any notable ones for people out there looking for guidance to
learn on YouTube?
Yeah.
Oh, I love Michael Shainbloom, as we talked about before. He's great. His videos are good, very professional. In my opinion, he's probably one of the best landscape photographers in the world.
Definitely.
So I love his videos. Nick Page, I like watching his stuff. Some of the other stuff I follow is wildlife photographers as well, guys like Morton Hilmer, Steve Mathis, guys like that. I find, because I still like following that stuff as well. But on the editing side of things, there's a guy called Blake Rudis. He's called the F64 Academy. I like him. Flern, Aaron Nace, PH Learn. Yeah. He's good. What's the other one? The Indian guy? Pix Imperfect.
Pix Imperfect, yeah.
Yeah, so probably those ones from a learning point of view.
Yeah, they're definitely 3 Photoshop ones that are well worth it. I love Blake's stuff because just his in-depth understanding of the areas that he's covering, like color theory, but not only that, how Photoshop implements color theory.
Yeah. He's very good to watch. And he's another one of those guys that you can tell when you watch his videos that he's really passionate about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And I've bought a stack of other photographers' tutorials as well.
Yeah.
I think if you've got a big ego, you can say, I don't need to learn off other photographers. I know everything, blah, blah, blah. But that's not the case with me. If If I admire another photographer, I want to know how they do stuff. So I often buy the tutorials and have a look at them. I recently bought Daniel Corden, actually. I recently bought his tutorials and had a bit of a look at them.
Yeah. He's got some good stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah, and his editing techniques are relatively simple too.
Definitely.
Not too technical. Yeah.
Circling back to where you decided to go full time, how hard was it to make that decision, and what sort of things were you putting in place to make it easy to make that decision?
Yeah, when I think about it, it was probably planned to a degree, because probably 12 months before I actually quit my other job and went full time, I started to do things in the background.
Yep.
And back then, you could actually get a pretty good following on social media and a lot of engagement. So I did well out of social media back then. I got a lot of people that followed my stuff. Yeah. So I worked hard at that, at trying to build up a bit of an audience in the background. But I also, when I was still working in my other job, I also started to do a few workshops sort of part-time. And I used to live at Port Macquarie on the mid-north coast. Mm-hmm. So I used to do just weekend workshops there, where we'd start on a Friday afternoon and finish at lunchtime on a Sunday. Yeah. So I started doing that just to learn the process of doing a workshop and what was involved and the planning and whatever else. So I did that for a while. And I think I did one or two New Zealand workshops as well when I was still working in my other job as well. Mm-hmm. And did that, just took time off work and did those just to test the waters. And yeah, I just woke up one day, really. It was probably a period of a 12-month period where I slowly but surely just started to lose interest in my former career. And because I had an autonomous job where I worked for myself sort of thing, I didn't have to report to a manager each day or whatever. Yeah. So to be honest, I started spending more of my work hours working on photography stuff.
They can't sack you now.
No, they can't sack me. No. Yeah, building up my photography business than I did working on my real job. But yeah, one day I just woke up and said, I'm going to give this a go. I'd worked for the company for years. I had long service pay and a few savings stashed away and all that sort of thing. So I worked out that I could afford to go for a year without an income if I had to. I could pay the bills. And so I thought I'll give it 1 year and see how it goes. And 6 months in, I reckon, and I was pretty much decided this is the life for me. This is where I'm going to go with it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
In terms of learning that process that you mentioned of hosting a workshop, what's the most important thing you learnt in that period?
Well, that's a good question. I think there's a couple of things. One is you've got to always put the people first. And he who shares wins is a bit of a quote. So the more information you share with people, if you're very open with people, and you need to, the customer's always first. So you need to think about making sure the customer gets what they want out of the experience.
Yeah.
And that's something we're pretty focused on, actually. We normally often ask our clients on the first day of a workshop if there's anything in particular that they really want to achieve.
Yeah.
And some people don't care. They're just there for the experience, but other people might have something in particular that they really want to learn.
Yeah, they want to work on. Yeah.
Often people want to learn more about using ND filters. That's always a common one, but there will often be special things, like someone will say, I really want a particular shot of Mount Cook or Tasman Lake or whatever it might be. I really want that. I want to frame it and hang it up at my house, or I want to learn more about shooting waves or whatever it is. So then you'll be aware that person's told you that. So you'll really make that effort to try and make sure that works for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one thing, making sure the customers always comes first. There's a lot of other stuff from a business point of view. There's a lot of really good photographers out there, and many photographers are probably a lot better at it than I am. But to be successful at it, I think you've also got to really have that business side of it switched on. You've got to understand that business and marketing side of it. That's actually really important. And I think for me, like, I came from a sales and marketing background for many years, so I think that definitely helps.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
How do you've obviously got some help from Lisa, but how do you get on with that process where you've got to be chief marketing officer, chief financial officer, chief photographer, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many hats you've got to wear when running your own business. How do you deal with all of those, juggling all of those activities?
Oh, mate, it's pretty full on. Like, I think a lot of people just look at what we do and think we just fly around the world taking photos and
you just turn up and push a button. That's all.
Yeah, sleep on planes and just relax. But honestly, it's busy, mate. Like this year especially, probably the busiest year I've had. There would be very few days this year that I haven't been doing something in the business. And I'm talking 7 days a week. Yeah. You're constantly working almost. Not last week, the week before, actually had a 5-day trip down the snowy mountains with a mate of mine. And we went and did a bit of fishing for a few days. That's the first, and I didn't even take a camera, actually.
Wow.
Left all my camera gear at home. That's the first sort of break I've had away from the business or photography for a few years.
Yeah.
But I enjoy it. But yeah, there's a lot involved. And the two things I hate the most in life is bad drivers and technology.
Yeah.
Like computers and emails and all that stuff. I'm reasonably okay with it, but it's one thing that stresses me out. So spending all these hours sitting in the office at home doing all the admin stuff, but it has to be done. That's the part I enjoy the least. You've got to do it. You have to do it.
Yeah, I think that balancing act that you've got to do, you've got to put the time and effort into it, in particular marketing, because if you don't, then no one knows you're there and no one's going to buy anything.
That's right. Yep. You've got to continue to put that one foot forward and have your name out there. You have to do that if you want to be successful.
One thing I like to ask quite a lot of people that are doing professional photography, and less so an issue for your workshops, but how do you price your work? Is there a formula, or is it just saying, all right, I think it's worth this, so that's what I want?
When I first started, when I set the gallery up, I know a couple of blokes that own galleries, a couple of guys in New Zealand, actually.
Yep.
So I spoke to them and I had an idea of what I would charge for my work, and they said, no way, that's too cheap. You just can't do that. These days, I do believe that any photographer that takes good quality photos, that you need to know your worth, like that you are worth something.
Yep.
So normally for me, it's probably I normally look at the cost of what it costs to print. I mainly do my stuff. I sell a few prints as well, like just prints on paper type thing, but mainly acrylics or frame prints. But normally the costs to get it printed, it's normally 3 or 4 times that I'd be selling it for, which I think is reasonable. I think sold, like I said, 120 centimeter acrylic this week for I think $1,600 or $1,700 or something like that, and I see people selling them for $3,000. So I think that's still pretty respectable.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
What's your favourite location? One that keeps pulling you back?
Oh, that's pretty easy. New Zealand, of course. I just love New Zealand. I've lived there a couple of times, and I'd probably still be living there now if it wasn't for COVID.
Yeah.
Definitely New Zealand. I love the place. I just absolutely love it.
What's your favourite spot in New Zealand then?
Whoa, that's a good question.
Because you've got a pretty varied set of locations there.
I'm not going to say one particular location. I'm just going to say a region. I would say the Mackenzie region.
Yeah.
Which is Mount Cook, Lake Pukaki, Tekapo, Twizel, that area.
Yep.
Yeah, I love it, mate.
Understandably.
Absolutely love it. Just, I don't know, there's a bit, we can get a bit spiritual here or whatever, but there's just something about New Zealand that really connects. I often say it's my spiritual home.
Yeah.
There's just something about it. And I'm sure I've spoke to other people that feel the same way about it. When I'm there, it's just feel different. I just feel just completely at peace, I think. It's just an amazing...
You set up your plan to retire there yet?
Maybe. A few years off retiring yet, mate, unless I make a lot of money out of something in the next few years. But I would like to buy a property there at some point, but whether that happens, the price of real estate over there is...
Yeah, it's rocketing.
Sydney now, it's ridiculous. Yeah. For the moment, I'm very settled here. I've bought a place here where I live now. I'm on the south coast of New South Wales, so really loving it. But it'd be nice to have somewhere in New Zealand as well. You could alternate between the two.
Yeah.
But that would definitely be at the top of my list. Yeah, you can't beat New Zealand. No.
What's your most memorable photography experience?
There's a couple. They come to mind pretty easily, actually. Two of them would be in New Zealand, and one of them's actually in Slovenia.
Okay.
I'll probably talk about the one in Slovenia. I was in Slovenia a few years ago and flew into Slovenia from Germany in the morning and landed in Ljubljana, which is the capital of Slovenia. And as we landed, there was just a complete whiteout. It was snowing as we landed. The runway was covered in snow. It was real full-on winter scenes. We went from the airport straight out to Lake Bled, and we got there in the afternoon and stayed there till dark. And it was probably a period of about 4 hours, and that was photography at its absolute best. Like, it was just incredible. Like, it was fresh snow on everything, not a breath of wind. Like, every branch on every tree had about an inch of snow just sitting on it. There was this fog coming in over the lake. I don't know if you've ever been to Lake Bled in Slovenia, but
I've seen enough shots of it.
It's a pretty special place.
Yeah.
And there's a church on this little island in the middle of the lake, and it was all draped in snow, and it was phenomenal, mate. Like, it was just one of those days where every photo you took was amazing. And I had a couple of shots from there that were pretty popular, and one I've sold a stack of prints of, and I hardly even edited the photo. It just was perfect. So that would be one. And others would be mornings in the New Zealand backcountry, in more remote areas in New Zealand, like backcountry valleys where you're a long way from main roads and things like that. Had a couple of mornings there that have just been outstanding. Had one probably about 4 years ago now, one that comes to mind that was just incredible. It was in the autumn time. So all the trees were just nice and colourful, and the light was phenomenal. There was a layer of fog, and the light, the pink sky and all that sort of thing. It went for about an hour. It was just,
wow.
And it just kept changing and changing. It was just incredible. So, yeah, that'd probably be the two that really stand out, I think.
Yeah. What about horror stories?
You live for those moments. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Horror stories.
Yeah.
Had plenty of them too. Had plenty of those. Yeah, horror stories. I can't think of any really bad ones. Nothing too bad. We have had days on workshops where it's been a struggle, where the weather's just been really, really bad, like pouring rain or...
Nothing better than horizontal rain to make your day.
Yeah. I can only ever think of once that I can think of where we actually spoke to our group of clients on a workshop once and decided that we weren't going to go out one day because the weather was really bad. That's only once, so that's pretty good.
That's a pretty good strike, right? Yeah.
That's pretty good. And I was prepared to go, gave the decision to the people, and they said, oh, no. But then I can think of other ones where it's been raining and snowing, and well, snow is good, but really abysmal weather, and we've decided to go out, and we've had to rethink how we do it.
Yep.
But then we've gone out and actually got really good photos. So you can still get good photos. I'm a pretty positive-minded person, so I don't really think about the horror stories. Well, there's probably been a few, but I just try and push them aside and not think about it. Yeah.
Fair enough. What are you like when you get home from a shoot? Are you straight into editing, or are you one to let it sit back and wait for a while?
I almost never do that. Very rarely would I get home and start editing. Almost never. I'm working on a series of photos at the moment, the last couple of days here, that I've been editing about 6 or 8 photos, and they're from 2019.
Yeah.
That's something I'll do often. I guess I'm fortunate enough that I've been out and done that much shooting over the years that I've just got so much stuff sitting on hard drives.
Yeah.
I really have got thousands and thousands of good images sitting on hard drives. That's a pretty good problem to have. Yeah, so every now and then I'll just open up an old folder from a while ago and go through. I'm working on putting a new web page together. Hopefully I'll have it on my website tomorrow for a new workshop. And so that's made me go back and look at photos from that area from the past.
Yeah,
So
right.
that's what I've been doing the last few days. And so no, I almost prefer to, and I know a few people do things this way, almost prefer to remove that emotional attachment you have to a photo shoot before you look at the photos. If you go out and have a good photo shoot, you're often on a real high after it.
Yeah.
Beat and happy and positive, and sometimes you'll almost maybe rush it a bit too much because you're emotionally connected to that moment. So I try and remove that emotional connection, and you'll come back and look at the photos anywhere. This year I've edited a batch of photos from most trips, but normally it's only 5 or 6 photos, the ones that just catch your eye the first. But sometimes it's not uncommon for me to go back to an old folder and drag out some photos from a few years ago. Yep.
Yeah.
I've never even looked at before.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm normally straight into an edit of some sort, but yeah, I know what you mean. I've tried to take that step back and separate yourself from the time, because there are times when I've gone into it and I don't know if it's rushing or whatever, but I then look at it a couple of days later or whatever and I go, what was I thinking?
Yeah, that always happens. But you know what else you can do too? Because as you go along, your style changes, what you like and what you don't like changes, but also your skill level changes as well.
Absolutely.
There's no reason why you can't go back to a couple of your favourite photos that you took a couple of years ago and do a fresh edit on them. Go back to the raw file and start all over again.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I've done before too. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything better than going back and taking a look. And in a lot of ways, it shows you where you've come from in some ways, but also it gives you that ability to apply things that you've learnt in the intervening time to the older images. And there's new tools, there's new techniques that you've learnt, etc., in that time that can really make a difference to how you would have edited it back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Definitely. I'm probably more critical now of my photography than I've ever been. But I think I still sometimes will edit a photo that's not good enough.
Yeah.
But I think I'm getting better at that. Sometimes I might spend 15, 20 minutes on a photo and then I'll just delete it. And I'll just say, no, it's just not good enough. And whereas
I've done that.
In the past I might have persevered with it, but now I just say, no, it's just not good enough, and I just forget it.
Yeah.
Someone famous once said, and once again, I don't know who it was, but it might have been Ansel Adams, maybe, I don't know. Landscape photography is about 97% failure or something like that. And it's pretty true. Like if you take 1,000 photos, you might have 20 good photos if you do them well out of that.
Yeah. No, it's probably about that. Sometimes less for me, but
yeah. There's shoots. There's times when you go out on a shoot and it might just be a local beach seascape shoot or something like that. Yeah. I'll come home and I won't necessarily download the photos straight away. I'll just leave them in the camera on the SD card. And a couple of days later, I'll look at them again and I'll just format the card. No, they're no good. Just delete. Yeah.
No, I tend to back them up and then delete them off the computer.
Yeah.
I'm normally first thing I do is get them home, get them onto the computer, and then there's offline backup and a local backup here, which helps me not lose anything that I might want. But then if I take a look at it and I go, nah, and I ditch it, then
What are you using to back up?
I use a couple of products. One is Carbonite, which is the offline.
Carbonite, is it?
Yeah, Carbonite. It's a cloud-based backup service, so it just runs a client on your computer and sticks everything up into the cloud.
Right.
And keeps it all in sync. The other one that I use is one called SyncBack Pro, which basically, so what that does, I use that for the local backup. So I've got one of those sand drives, and basically, again, it's just a client that sits there and shifts everything onto the sand drive for us.
Okay. Yep.
Keeps it all. Keeps. I know at least if I have a fire or something like that,
Yeah.
then I can restore. And I had a situation where the power supply on the computer died about 3-4 months ago, and so she wouldn't boot up, wouldn't do anything. Took it down the shop, got new power supply put in, and in doing that, they also cleaned it up a little bit, and
Yep.
just to make sure. Luckily, I didn't lose anything important, but just to make sure, I was able to go through and do a comparison with what was on the backups with what was on here to make sure that I hadn't lost anything, and it was all good.
Yeah, I'm using one called Crash Plan. I'm not a real techie guy, so I don't know if it's any good or not. I've been using it for a few years now.
Don't know it, but
I've got one big hard drive here, which is one of those big G technology hard drives. 12 or 16 terabytes or something.
Nice. Yeah.
And it backs up to this Crash Plan. But I don't know if it's normal or not, but I find it's very slow to back up.
Really? Okay.
It hasn't done a full backup for a couple of months. It's still going. Going in the background. But I suppose I'm backing a lot of stuff up to it.
16 terabytes will take a while.
Yeah, and I've more recently video stuff as well.
That will take a while.
4K video files and stuff.
I've found with Carbonite, because it's not, so it doesn't do a full backup at any one point in time. It's basically incremental. So if you change something on your hard drive on the computer, it'll then just move everything up into the cloud for you.
Yeah.
The other one is a little bit different. That's taking a full backup, and I've got that set up differently, and that does take a while. I don't know exactly what I've got. I think I've got about 8 terabytes of images and video and documents and various other bits and pieces. So
it's still a lot of stuff.
Yeah, takes a while to manage it. And I think one of the hardest parts in dealing with it is just making sure that where stuff is when you want to go looking for it.
That's a problem. Sometimes, I want to find this photo, and it takes me half an hour. I can't remember what year it was. I can't remember what season it was.
Where was it? What year was it?
Yeah. It's amazing how quick the years go. And you think, that was about 2020, and it turns out it was like 2017 or something.
That's it.
Yeah.
You mentioned printing your work.
Yep.
You got any tips for prepping images for printing? Do you print your own, or do you use a service?
No, I don't print my own. I've never got into printing my own, but I have learned a fair bit about it over time. And two things. One is use a good printer, use someone who actually knows what they're doing. Like everything in life, it's not always the cheapest product that's the best. Often the cheap ones are no good at all.
Yeah.
So I've got a few people that I use for things. I do a lot of acrylic face mounts.
Yep.
So I use 5 Magics in Sydney, a guy called Patrick. He's a good fella.
Yeah.
He's over on Brookvale, near there somewhere.
Yeah.
He's a good bloke, does a good job. He specialises in acrylics. So, I've used him for years now. He's done a stack of stuff for me.
Yeah.
But, I've learned a bit over the years. So, whenever you finish a photo sort of thing, you have what I call your master file, which will be like a TIFF file for me.
Yep.
And then you'll have your small file you put on your website or social media or whatever. So, often that photo that you put on social media is quite different to the one that you print.
Yep.
So you'll go back to that before you send it to the printers. You'll go back to that TIFF file. I'll pixel peek, even though I might have printed it before. I'll still do it again. I'll pixel peek the TIFF file, go over pretty much every pixel, make sure there's no blemishes there.
Mm-hmm.
But normally I flatten the image a bit and what I mean by that is I bring the highlights down a bit and bring the shadows up a bit.
Yeah,
even a bit more of a flatter look. Even add a little bit of exposure sometimes. I find that prints better when you do that. And then the other thing is your sharpening. Sometimes I'll use like the TK panel to sharpen my photos for social media. Yeah. But then if I'm going to print an image, sometimes I'll actually take some sharpening out of it before I print it, because sometimes when they print, they can actually look too sharp.
Yeah, they can they look crispy and crinkly. Yeah.
Yeah, a bit too sharp sometimes, depending. Sometimes I actually take a bit of sharpening out, but I'd say flattening it out a bit is a good tip before you print it, because there's any printer or printing machine always prints blacks very dark.
Yep.
The other thing, which is probably not a bad process, is to consider where the print's actually going to go, like which wall of a house it's going to be on. This is something I will often ask people. For example, is it going on a white wall? Is it going on a dark coloured wall, etc.? Yep. If it's going on a white wall and it's in good light, the other thing is how much natural light's in the room. If it's a room with bad natural light, you need a really bright print. Now, you don't want one of those dark and moody type shots on a dark room, because it's just terrible. Yeah. So, yeah, they'd be other things to think about. If it's on a white wall, you can have a photo that's probably a little bit darker or a bit more contrasty. Yeah, depends on the room. More about the natural light, I think, how much light's in the room, as to how bright you make the print.
Yeah.
They're all things to consider, I think, if you want to do it properly. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think, as you said, having a chat to the printer and the client and understanding what it's for is vital, because that really helps you process it properly so that it ends up looking good.
I think a good printer, if you send them a TIFF file and there's something that's a bit too dark, or you've clipped the blacks or whatever it might be, they should contact you and say, don't know how this is going to print. Maybe you should have another look at it. Yeah.
One of the things I do just out of hand before I send it off to the printer is do a levels adjustment.
Yep.
In that, you've down at the bottom of your levels adjustment tab, you've got 0 and 255 values.
Yep.
0 almost always goes to 5 or 10.
Yep.
And so that there are no blacks.
Yep.
And the whites I bring down probably to about 250.
Yeah.
Just knock those 5 points out of it. And
that's a good idea.
To give you a better result than if you leave it alone, because if you do have any absolute blacks or absolute whites, then, as you say, it's not necessarily going to look that great when you print it.
No. Yeah, I've printed them where the blacks have been not clipped, but pretty hard towards black, and they come out a bit too black for my liking. Not so natural.
Yeah. That's the key. Is it going to look natural?
Yeah. But then again, some people like that look too. So
it depends on how contrasty you want it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Depends how many likes you want on Instagram, mate. Yeah. The more contrast and saturation you give it.
I think that used to be the way. There's a little bit more discernment now. Not much, but
I think, you know what? That definitely was
absolutely
the way to go. And magenta, mate. They love the magenta.
If you can,
I think now there seems to be, I feel like in the last 2 years, there is quite a lean going back towards that more natural look, which is good, because that's more the style I like.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah.
Got to say, I'm guilty of pumping the contrast and the vibrant stuff a little bit.
Yeah, we've all done that before. Yeah.
How do you deal with a creative wall? Have you ever hit a creative wall and said, it's all too hard, I don't want to do it anymore?
Yeah, often, but they don't last for long. You will often get them, but sometimes they'll only last a couple of days. So I just say don't force it. You can't force it. If you jump on your computer one night, you decide I'm going to do some editing, and you pull up a few photos and you start editing, and you're just not feeling it. You're not sure what to do in terms of what you're going to do with the edit. Just walk away. Don't force it. Just walk away. Yeah, just come back in a couple of days or weeks or whatever. If there's one thing I've really learnt in the last few years, it's don't rush anything, particularly with photos. Like, just don't rush it. There's no rush. There's no rush. Yeah. But most of the time, creative ruts, as people say, I don't really know that I've ever gone into one of those too much. Okay. I guess one thing that we tend to do is We're very busy. We normally start our workshop season in sort of February, March probably, and we go through until the end of November, early December. And then we have the summer off.
Yep.
We don't do any workshops over the summer, and generally like December, January, February. Around that time, we normally just spend time with family, do all the other things, have a bit of time off. So what I actually tend to do is when I get to the end of the season, because we've got 2 more workshops starting in New Zealand this Sunday, once they're finished, I'll come home, download all the photos. I might edit between then and Christmas, might edit a few photos. But after that, I literally put my camera gear in the cupboard and just leave it there for 2 months.
Yeah.
I literally don't touch it. I just forget it and just go and do other things, go and have Christmas with friends and family and just forget about it. So I think that probably helps.
Yeah.
Having that time away. Yeah. And then by the time you come back in March or whatever, you're really enthused and raring to go again. Yeah.
What do you see as being the biggest challenge facing photography right now?
Oh, that's pretty easy. AI, of course, as we were talking about before.
Yeah.
I don't think it's, from a landscape photography point of view, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. Like I said to you before, a few people have asked me on workshops and stuff, are you worried about AI? And I say no, because people, it's not necessarily about the photo, it's about the experience.
Yeah.
And the experience becomes that emotional attachment to the photo.
Mm-hmm.
So people always want that experience and that emotional attachment to the photo. So I don't think they're going to get that from AI. But what else challenges? Social media is dead. So people that were using social media to drive their profile or their business forward, I think it's a lot harder to do that now than it was 5 or 6 years ago. So that's probably a challenge. I think video is where it's all going now.
Yeah. I've got to say, aside from the rise of video on platforms like Instagram, I think one of the challenges is just everyone's a photographer, and if you want to make money out of it, then because there's so much out there and the demand is so small, the value is hard to come by. So it's hard to get people to understand the value of it.
You mean in terms of selling your photos?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what, I've looked into this a fair bit, and in terms of selling your photos, I've come to the conclusion that basically what it is that there's actually a very small market of people out in society that want to buy your photos to start with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that actual market, it's not a big market. It's actually a small market. And then you've got thousands of people trying to get that market.
Yeah,
so
all after the market. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's ever been a huge market. It's
I agree. Yeah.
It's like art, like people sell paintings and so forth. Even it's quite a limited audience or a limited market. And then you see people that are selling their photos for next to nothing just to get their name out there. But I think that devalues their worth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Where do you see the future of photography going?
I think it's really strong, actually, Grant.
Yeah.
I think it's getting stronger, if anything. I think when you look online, you're looking at photos that it's very saturated. Like there's millions and millions of good photos out there. But in saying that, I think people that are leaning towards photography as a hobby or a pastime, I don't know the statistics, but I reckon it's probably a growing industry. A lot of people are into photography these days. Yeah. I think there's a good
camera manufacturers might argue with that, but
the phone. There's lots of people that call themselves photographers that are doing it all on their phone these days.
Oh, absolutely, and video as well.
Yeah, there's heaps of guys shooting YouTube now on their phones. These new phones, new iPhones. I don't know much about the other ones, but they take amazing video. Yeah, so I think it's still strong. I think everyone always likes photographs. I don't think we'll see the industry get, lose any momentum. I think it'll just keep going. But there does seem to be that the people that are making the cameras, there does seem to be that in the middle of the market. So you have your cheap camera, like your entry level SLR type cameras, and then you have your high end professional level cameras. well, you had all those models in the middle. They seem to be fading away, and it's either just cheap camera or high end, and there doesn't seem to be much available in the middle.
The middle ground isn't really there. Canon's still doing some of that with the R series now. They've started to do things like the R7, which is APS-C crop sensor, and I think, is it the R8?
Yeah,
one of those, but I don't know. Canon and Sony tended to, as you say, split the difference and gone to either the high or the low end, I think, in the mirrorless space.
I think what that is that middle market, the people that were buying those cameras in the middle are now just using their phones.
Yeah, buying phones and
taking that over.
Yeah.
I've had heaps of like friends and relatives and things ask me, I'm going on a trip to Europe. I want to get a good camera for my trip. What should I get? And I say, what do you want? Your tourist sort of snapshots? And they say, yep. I say, just use your phone.
Yeah.
What do you need to go and buy?
They're great until you want to blow something up. And if you want to, as you say, if you just want shots that you can share on social media and so forth. Yeah, some of them, the higher end ones, like your latest iPhones and Androids and whatever, you could probably blow them up to a reasonable size. But I think you'd then have to start getting into AI sort of enlargement programs to help you get the quality out if you start to get them up into that sort of 1-2 meter space.
Yeah. I think the new iPhone.
Not many people are doing that though. So.
No, I think the new iPhone's about 46 megapixels or something.
Something like that, yeah. But it's still a sensor the size of your thumb.
Yeah.
There's always been this thing about, it's got so many megapixels, but it's not just about the megapixels. No. It's about the quality of the sensor. And I'm not knocking this. The sensors they've got are fantastic, and they've just improved out of sight. But you can't compare a thumbnail size sensor with a 3-inch or a 5.5-inch medium format.
No.
Cheese.
Us critical pixel peepers that zoom every image into 2,000%. The one thing that really stands out for me, I use a Canon R5. I've had it for a couple of years now. Even when I got that camera, I went from the Canon 5D Mark IV. The first thing I noticed, like from day dot, is the resolution. Yeah. And there's no substitute for that, especially when you see it actually printed on a wall. Absolutely. That's when you do know the difference, that resolution. So you'll never get that out of a phone. Well, I shouldn't say never. You probably will.
Yeah, I reckon you will eventually. The tech has just come a long way. But, as I say, it's not many people wanting to do that, even with their phone shots,
And these new cameras now, like it doesn't matter which brand, any of the top brands, the quality of the images coming out of these cameras is outstanding.
Even an entry-level kit. Yeah. You can still take a damn good photo with even some of the older ones going back 5-10 years. The entry-level kit there was still pretty good. Yeah. I'm not saying you could compare. You couldn't necessarily compare them when you blow them up into large format prints, but in terms of looking at it on social media, you couldn't tell the difference between something that was taken with an entry-level camera from 5-10 years ago and a high-end camera taken this year from this year.
Yeah. But these new cameras are pretty impressive. The stuff that it's changed the way I shoot using the Canon R5. It's definitely changed the way I shoot. It just makes such a big difference.
Well, I think the mirrorless has really changed up the way that people do it, because you can do handheld for a reasonable amount of time and take your long, well, not your longer, but a longish exposure handheld, which you could never do with it, or still can't do with a DSLR.
No, all my waterfall stuff now is all handheld. I don't use a tripod. And you shoot a quarter of a second or something like that handheld, no problems at all. And people, when they come on workshops now, if they've got a good camera, like one of the newer Sonys or Nikons or Canon or one of the Fuji GFXs or whatever, I just say to them, just shoot for the highlights. And they really struggle. Oh, the photo's dark. It'll be right. Just leave it. It's fine. Just don't clip the highlights. And then you'll jump. I had a lady last year with a Nikon Z7 II shooting the lupins photos, and it was very windy. So I said, we're going to have to punch the ISO up to 800, and we're doing handhelds, and we're shooting for the highlights. And she said, this won't be any good. I said, yeah, it will. And then the next day we opened the image up and we did 5 slider edit. And I said, there you go, look at that. And incredible. And that's what you can do with these new cameras.
It's not just that. I don't know if you've seen the ID noise in Lightroom and Adobe Camera Raw. Yeah. I've got some old shots that I know were really badly underexposed and noisy as buggery. And I stick them through that and push the button, wait a couple of seconds, and noise is gone.
Yeah, no, it's pretty impressive, that new denoiser. Yeah, does a good job.
Absolutely.
I know, getting back to Michael Shainbloom again, he did a YouTube video there not long ago where he analysed all the different denoise programs, and the Topaz and what's the other one, DxO and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And he reckoned like the Lightroom one was as good as any. I use Lightroom or use Camera Raw, same thing. But
it's the same software basically.
Yeah, it's impressive. It's impressive.
Yeah, definitely. What's your favourite thing about being a photographer?
The unknown, maybe. I think the favourite thing is probably the unknown. Every day is different, and some days just turn out to be incredible days, and that's an unknown. You don't know that's going to happen. You get up, you go out, and you shoot, and all of a sudden it turns into this absolutely amazing day that is a real memorable day. Yeah, and you didn't know that was going to happen. Probably that. Yeah,
cool.
I also I am also a person that I really do get a lot of enjoyment out of teaching people. I actually really do enjoy that. And particularly when I see people improve, or the main thing that I like to see is when I see their confidence improve.
Yeah.
They become a lot more confident in their learning. Yeah. That's a highlight. That's a favourite part. Yeah.
What's the worst thing about being a photographer?
Getting up early, like at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, because I've never been a morning person. So when I'm at home, when we're here,
a handicap for a photographer.
I know. When we're at home here, when we're not doing workshops, I don't get up early. I'm a 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock wake up, stay up late watching YouTube and sleep in every day. But on workshops, you can be up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So that's not my favourite part.
Yeah.
But I always say, I don't think I've ever regretted getting up early. Once you've actually gone out and experienced a sunrise or whatever, even on a miserable day, you still don't regret it. You still always enjoy it. Yeah. So that's one part. That'd probably be the one. Yeah, getting up early. I don't like that much, but
yeah, fair enough.
That comes with it, right? You've got to do it.
Yeah, I've got a new least favourite, and comes from tramping around a national park in Queensland. There's leeches.
Oh yeah, mate. Oh, they're brutal. Them things.
These things were ridiculous. They were. I must have had about 50 or 60 of the buggers all over me. Not sucking blood, but just climbing up. I had long trousers on and whatever.
Right.
But they were trying to get in under the cuffs of my trousers and into my shoes, and there was thousands of the buggers.
So, in Queensland where you were, is there any ticks or snakes?
There probably would have been, but I think it was a bit damp and cold for the snakes where we were. We're up in the mountains there at the back of Mackay there, Yungala.
Yep.
Or Yungala. I've heard it pronounced about 10 different ways. But funnily enough, on the walk back out from there, we saw these 2 German backpackers, and the bloke, he had a pair of sandals on.
Oh.
I gave him the warning and said, you might want to change your shoes. And he said, I'll be fine. I said, all right, good luck.
Yeah. The only other one we have down here on the south coast is actually a lot of ticks.
Yeah.
In the last 12, 18 months, I've had 3 of them. I had one buried in the top of my head.
Yuck.
So if you go bush bashing down here, there's plenty of ticks around there. They seem to be on the New South Wales coast a lot.
Yeah.
South coast and the north coast. Used to get them up at Port Macquarie as well. Yeah. So they're not much fun, those things.
Yeah, you do get them up in Queensland, but didn't come across any ticks, luckily. But, the leeches were just a nightmare.
And the other one in New Zealand, well, the good thing about New Zealand is there's no snakes, so you can just bash your way through the bush wherever you want, and you just have this new sort of confidence that you don't even think about it. But one thing you do get over there is the sandflies. I don't know if you ever.
Oh, yeah.
They can be pretty brutal, actually.
Yeah.
At times.
I'm still scratching some of the sandfly bites that I got up in Queensland too, around the coast there. They call them midgies.
Yeah, they're the really tiny ones.
Yeah.
You can't even see them.
Can't see them, and they'll just get about 50 or 60 bites in one place.
Once you start itching, mate, you won't stop. Don't itch them, whatever you do.
Don't scratch them. No, definitely don't.
Yeah. The ones in New Zealand are a bit bigger. They're probably half the size of our normal fly we get here, so they're actually bigger. But yeah, they can be pretty lethal over there, and particularly in the wet areas where it's wet or damp, or in forests or around rivers and sand and stuff like that. Milford Sound's a good spot for them.
Yeah.
And they're the same. Once they start biting you, you won't stop itching for days. Yeah.
No, that's it. Yeah, horrible things. I don't know who decided to invent them, but they can take them back. Who do you think I should be talking to on the podcast?
I knew you were going to ask me this, so I actually wrote it down. There's a few that I admire, but you've already had most of the people I like on your podcast. Michael Shaneblum, you've had Victoria Hark, an Aussie guy that you should talk to. I don't know, you may have already actually. Is Dylan Toe?
No, I haven't spoken to Dylan yet. I do know his work.
Yeah, Dylan's from Adelaide. He's Everlook Photography.
Yeah, Everlook.
Yeah. He's a good bloke, and he's a really good photographer. He's been around for a while. He does a lot of stuff. He's always out adventuring with his family, and he's got great landscapes. The other one I would have said was my partner, Lisa Milne, but she won't talk to you on a podcast. She's too shy.
I did ask her.
Oh, yeah, no, she said that. Yeah, she's good. She takes some good landscapes. There's a few more there. I'm not sure whether you've spoken to guys like Blake Randall. I don't know if you've heard of him.
No, I have heard of him. Yeah,
He's I haven't. From Pacific Northwest or Canada there somewhere. He's really good. Another guy I quite like is called Marco Grassi.
Yep.
He's an Italian guy.
Yep.
I like his stuff. And the one I was talking to you about before we went on air was a guy that I only came across the other day. I don't know him, but I really like his photos. Is a guy called Mitch Green. He's got some real nice photos.
Yeah, I've been following him for a little while. He's got some awesome stuff. I've definitely going to put him on the list, and thank you for the others.
I think Dylan would be a good one. Dylan Toe.
Yeah,
he's really good.
All right, I know you've listened to a couple of podcasts, so you probably know what the final question is.
Yes,
but, I'm going to ask it anyway.
Yep.
Do you like pineapple on pizza?
Definitely, mate. 100%.
Yeah,
it goes good with chili. Actually, you add a bit of chili as well, so then you get the sweet and spice. Yeah,
chili flakes or chili sauce?
Oh, anything chili. I just love chili. I'll tell you a funny story about pineapple on pizza, actually. We were in the Dolomites earlier this year doing a workshop over there.
I don't imagine there'd be too much pineapple on pizza.
And we went to this pretty authentic restaurant in the Dolomites, and one of the guys and obviously their main thing was pizzas. One of the guys on our workshop ordered a pizza off the menu, whatever it was, and then he asked the waiter, could he put pineapple on it? And the waiter just gave him this real filthy look and just went, Jesus. That's all he said. He didn't say anything else. He went, Jesus. Yeah, I think the answer was no. Yeah.
I imagine anywhere in Italy you'd be lucky to find a pineapple anywhere near a pizza shop.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's an Aussie thing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time today, Brett. It's been wonderful getting to know you a little bit better. Where can people find your work?
Best place, just have a look at my website, photos.com. You can find me on all the usual social media, YouTube. I like to do a bit of stuff on YouTube, Flickr, all that stuff. But my website would be the first point of call. Yep.
All right. Thanks very much, mate.
No, thanks, Grant. Good on you.
Thanks again for listening to Landscape Photography World. I hope you enjoyed the show, and keep listening because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work in this podcast at grantswinburnphotography.com. I'm also on Vero, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. I'm Grant Swinburne. Hope to see you out shooting soon.